A while ago, thePedanticRomantic released 2 videos that describe her reaction to shows with heavy horror elements, which she ended up enjoying as a comedy, laying out that the theme of both videos is that there's more than one way to interpret a show. The reason I return to these videos is because for having that message, it really only chooses one way to enjoy each of these shows, leaving them feeling somewhat incomplete. This is likely because she assumed that the alternative interpretation of these shows are so obviously understood by the audience. But even obvious opinions have deep-rooted causes that are worthy of analysis. What's more fascinating is the fact that even the very scenes she analyzed to have a very clear comedic appeal are scenes that I still interpreted as horrific. So with that, let's talk about horror comedies. Before we discuss how horror and comedy mixes well for me, it's important to understand what I like about comedies. And the thing about that opinion is that I largely don't. Comedies as a standalone genre come off as incredibly trite and unmeaningful. 4-coma adaptations are generally boring by how uninvested I am in the characters in these situations, regardless of how ridiculously entertaining these situations are. It is when comedy is complemented with other story elements that the experience begins to become meaningful. The joke in Konosuba when Kazuma finds out his stats are average and that he doesn't embody the overpowered light novel protagonist that his brain is conditioned to believe he would in this kind of situation is pretty funny, and that humor is furthered by the attendant commenting that he has a higher than average luck, as if that's something to be happy about when his standards are so much higher. But it's when that joke is brought back in the last episode, when Kazuma tells Whis to trust him because he has high luck, creating a moment of levity in a high-tension situation, a moment of assurance between 2 defined characters that changes their emotional states, giving us emotional relief in turn, while also calling back to the very first episode, allowing us to reflect on how much has progressed and how far we have come, is when a show that is labeled as comedy becomes truly special. It's those moments in Gintama when comedic character chemistry causes characters to care, creating cathartic character conduct in contempt of cat burglars trying to run over the old hag that you always get in fights with but still love so much that you would protect her. And she knows it too. And let's not forget how in Rick and Morty, twisted nihilistic ideas are laughed off as if the show is handing comedy over as a coping mechanism, and then suddenly our self-proclaimed god himself breaks to said nihilism, ending on absolute dread, bare of the coping mechanism that we have become so accustomed to and reliant on. The point is that the value I find in any story based heavily in comedic themes is mainly from the way the comedy is employed to add to its non-comedic appeal. And thus, in order to unpack the intrigue of any tale with some comedic foundation, such as the aforementioned horror comedy genre, I have to ask myself how the comedy adds to the show's non-comedic appeal. Before we dive into the specific appeal of horror comedies as a horror, I need to put it out there that I am afraid of psychopaths. I am an atheist, an optimist, a pacifist, and an idealist who falls much in the same boat as people like Saber, Monkey, Naruto, and Hanekawa. I rely heavily on people's innate empathetic nature to justify my ideals. And as such, ideas such as people who lack empathy exist, or people can be pushed to other innate reactions such as fear or greed above empathy, frightens me. And thus there is no better way to put the appeal of these horrifically comedic characters in situations other than to say that it gives off a sense of tonal insanity. All of the comedic ways Attack on Titan's setup and revealed plot twists were reflective of the sense of fear and confusion the characters were feeling in the events of the narrative. All of the random bursts of gore in Another, or personality changes in Higurashi, or the edge of the character designs in Prison School, are reflective of the peaks of insanity that these stories reach. Even Mayuiga, the show where the joke is that there really was not a threat, is horrifically fascinating as I thought about how insane the characters in Mayuiga had to be in order to artificially fabricate such a threat. Even the seasons Angels of Death and Happy Sugar Life managed to capture a level of insanity through its character dynamics and presentation of situation. I think this is what acclaimed creator of Another Blood Sea in My Liga, Tsutomu Mizushima, meant when he said that there isn't much difference between comedy and horror, that there really isn't a big difference between a situation that is funny and one that is insane. And the way you interpret any situation is largely dependent on your personal taste and experiences. And that, my friends, combined with the Pedantic Romantic's video, is a complete explanation on the multiple ways you can view a horror comedy.
We gotta have it, we have no control. Where is the love, the kind we dream of, the kind that makes us young, the kind that makes us young.
Hey, what's that? Could it be a thumbnail for an SAO video? One that talks about its long-forgotten positive traits? That's right, folks, a positive SAO video is coming. Get hyped!